Power is not found in the hand that strikes, but in the touch. In that space between desire and fulfillment, you become a god to her. Machiavelli. In the silent game of desire, there are triggers capable of piercing any female defense and awakening in her a pleasure so deep that it becomes impossible to resist. Machiavelli would never speak of love, but he would perfectly understand the power of provoking emotions that dominate the will. These 5 triggers do not merely seduce, they capture, condition, and leave any woman trapped in the flavor of your presence. There is a type of silent power that runs through every human interaction, and few understand its depth. Machiavelli knew that pleasure was not just a feeling, but a strategic weapon capable of dismantling resistance, dissolving logic, and transforming any woman into an emotional accomplice without her noticing. Every woman, even the proudest, carries within her a response mechanism to deep stimuli that, when triggered with mastery, makes her feel not just attracted, but inevitably pulled toward you, as if it were an unavoidable call of nature itself. The first of these triggers is born from the feeling of exceptionality. It is not about telling her she is special, but making her realize that she awakens a side of you that almost no one accesses. This is the sweet poison of Machiavellian seduction. You offer carefully calculated fragments of vulnerability, small breaches that give the sensation that there is a version of you reserved exclusively for her. Even if this is a perfectly constructed illusion, when she believes she sees what others do not, she feels pleasure in the discovery itself. And when she feels pleasure in something she believes she has conquered, she begins to protect that conquest as if it were part of herself. This initial pleasure intensifies with unpredictability. A woman never falls in love with monotony. She falls in love with the organized chaos of a man who knows how to alternate presence and absence at the exact rhythm that disarms and creates addiction. Unpredictability is the second trigger because it transforms every gesture of yours into something she tries to decipher. If you disappear for a bit, she thinks. If you respond calmly when she expected urgency, she asks herself, why? If you appear with intensity after a period of calculated coldness, her body, without permission from her mind, responds with dopamine. Machiavelli would have said that the man who controls attention controls the heart, and nothing holds attention more than that which cannot be predicted. The error of common men is wanting to please continuously, giving too much affection, speaking too much. But female pleasure is fed by contrast. She feels pleasure when her emotional world is shaken lightly, when she feels she is dancing on unknown terrain. The third trigger is the pleasure of the ego challenge. Every woman, even the sweetest, carries within her an invisible competitive instinct. Not a competition against you, but against her own emotional shadow. She wants to feel she is conquering a man who is not easily bent. Pleasure arises when she notices small signs that she is advancing. An unexpected compliment, a longer look, a short message charged with intention. But this pleasure will multiply if, in the next instant, you return to your state of absolute control. The oscillation between victory and uncertainty activates the mechanism of intermittent reinforcement, the same mechanism that makes a gambler pull the slot machine lever one more time. Machiavellian seduction operates exactly like this. You give small victories and withdraw the reward before she feels totally safe. A woman feels pleasure when she believes she is close to deciphering you, but never totally. Complete victory kills interest. Partial victory eternalizes it. The fourth trigger is that of carefully constructed emotional tension. There is no pleasure without tension, and no tension without rhythm control. The common man fears silence and the pause. The Machiavellian man knows the pause is part of the speech, and silence is part of the seduction. When you look at her a second longer, when you touch and pull away, when you leave something in the air she needs to imagine, expectation grows into real pleasure. Tension is not created by the touch, but by the promise of the touch. The mind creates fantasies much more powerful than any immediate action. Finally, the fifth trigger begins to emerge the moment you transform into the only person capable of messing with her emotions without losing control of your own. Female pleasure increases when she realizes there is a man who can shake her internal structures without ever losing his own composure. Cold stability, combined with occasional intensity, creates a paradoxical sensation of safety and danger. It is this contrast that makes her body respond before she even notices. You touch her emotionally without fully committing. This asymmetry keeps the game alive. True power arises when she realizes you do not shake or lose your axis, even when she tries to test your limits. There is a hidden pleasure in the heart of every woman, the pleasure of feeling taken by someone who remains firm while her emotional world oscillates. It is not about physical domination, but psychological stability. Male self-control is a silent aphrodisiac. Machiavelli would say, a leader must not react like the people. And in seduction, the people are the other men. You must be the exception. The pleasure she feels before a stable man is directly linked to the sensation of surrender. Not physical surrender, but that involuntary emotional surrender that happens when you dominate your own impulses. When you become something rare, a man who does not beg, chase, or despair, you become worthy of her desire. The more rare something is, the more valuable it seems. Her ego begins to work to please you, and this effort makes her feel even more pleasure because now you are something she wants to keep. But there is another trigger few master: the pleasure of imagination. A woman's pleasure is mental, sensory, imaginative. It is built on the details you don't say, the pauses you leave, the subtext of your phrases. Her imagination works against her and in favor of you. When you speak with a calm that hides emotions, or disappear for a few hours without explanation, she imagines. Imagination is the greatest amplifier of female pleasure. Mystery is the fuel of desire. The less she knows, the more she creates. And the more she creates, the more pleasure she feels. Machiavellian seduction is made of micro-expressions and controlled intentions that do not pressure her, but make her wish you would go a little further. The secret is to always stop before where another man would go. The soft frustration you leave creates pleasure because it lights the hunger for what did not happen. Women do not feel pleasure for the man who surrenders quickly, but for the man who surrenders just enough to make her believe there is more, provided she earns it. Absence calculated is a powerful weapon. It is not ignoring. It is appearing when you decide, not when she demands. It is being accessible, but not available. A woman feels pleasure when she perceives that a man could have her, but does not take her. When he could declare himself, but chooses silence. This is strategy, and strategy in seduction generates pleasure. The more she feels there is something in you she cannot control, the more she desires to try. This oscillation creates emotional dependence. Machiavelli spoke of power, and in seduction, power and desire are the same thing when her mind places you at the center. When the pleasure stops being a stimulus and transforms into an identity, you reach the highest point of Machiavellian seduction. It is no longer about what you do, but what you represent inside her. You become a symbol of intensity and depth she does not find in the everyday world. At this level, pleasure is self-generated. Her own brain acts for you. This activates the trigger of the internal narrative. She creates stories in her head, imagining scenarios and future versions of you two. Fantasy is more powerful than reality because it has no limits. You become the protagonist of her fantasies, entering a territory from which she can hardly escape. Ultimately, you become a reference, an emotional standard against which all other men fail because they are predictable and reactive. Her pleasure transforms into a form of sweet dependence. She needs your validation, your touch, your presence, but tries to hide it. The pleasure comes from the vulnerability of feeling something real. When you understand her silences and read her emotions, you trigger emotional recognition. She feels pleasure in existing truly in your world. When pleasure becomes a memory and a sweet prison, you no longer need to seduce, for the work
is done. You have conquered not just the body, but the territory of her emotional pleasure, and she will never forget you.